Hello and welcome to ClapperCast. I'm your host as always, Carson Timar, and today I'm once again joined by the King of Burbank, Michael Fairbanks, as we review a double feature of new releases. In this episode, we are both tackling Wes Anderson's The Phoenician Scheme, and we're going to review Bring Her Back, the newest film from the pair that brought us Talk to Me a few years ago. These are both new releases that we were quite excited for, and today we're going to see if they lived up to our expectations and kick off the summer by looking at a few of these new releases. Thank you so much for listening and watching here on the podcast. Now let's get to our reviews of The Phoenician Scheme and Bring Her Back. Okay, Michael, thank you so much for joining me. A little bit of a blast from the past, doing a couple new releases this week instead of focusing on just one release, but I think that's quite fun, especially because our first film, I want to start with this one. I feel like I need to get off my chest. Wes Anderson's The Phoenician Scheme. Look, I've not been the biggest Wes Anderson fan since the pandemic. I thought French Dispatch was pretty awful. Didn't really like the Netflix ones. I like Asteroid City. We already had a debate on the podcast. Would recommend anyone check out that episode. That film did some stuff for me, but largely I've been pretty critical. Even before the pandemic, like Moonrise Kingdom didn't do much. I think he's a director. His early work is really, really quite spectacular, and then there's a pretty clear drop off outside of some rare moments. This is pretty easily for me his worst film he's ever made. What a just completely boring and just worthless film. I'm sure we'll get more into some specifics, but every single theme here, every single message, every single story feels weirdly just like a shell of what he's already covered. If you want to see a father connect with his family, go watch The Royal Tenenbaums. If you want a travel film that talks about the power of travel and seeing different people, go watch The Darjeeling Limited. Go watch Life Aquatic. That's far better than this. Go watch literally any one of his films. If you want the quirky style, the visuals in this one are not even that good. It's a step down from even like the French Dispatch, which at least looked very pretty. I assume I know you're a beef with Wes Anderson. I have a feeling you're not going to defend this, but are you as harsh on this as me, or where are you on the Phoenician Scheme?
I am pretty much exactly with you. I think that it's a marginal step up from French Dispatch and Asteroid City, which I hate. I'm sorry. It's just like I have a really hard time for the most part whenever a director is like, this is a movie about my specific creative process. I just think it's insufferable. And like the combination of that and the whole kind of pandemic metaphor, I didn't think it was good at all. Um so this I think at least harkens back to some of the more kind of farcical charm of the Grand Budapest Hotel, which I really think is the last great movie he ever made. But really, beyond that, I just find that at this point, he's regressed so much as a director in terms of not only wanting to just do this one specific style. Like maybe Asteroid City was a very slight deviation, but for the most part, he's just obsessed with this picturesque, very fakey, kind of painterly aesthetic, and he's just kind of doing it over and over again ever since Grand Budapest Hotel. And like you said, it does lack some of the visual variety of French Dispatch, which at least had the fun black and white segments and stuff like that. But deeper than that, I just think that the story this time around is so thin, and the lead performance from Benicio del Toro is really what kills it for me. I don't like him in general. I am absolutely baffled by how successful his career is because to me, he just pretty consistently brings nothing to the table that isn't on the page. And I sort of understand why Wes Anderson would want him to be the lead of this because he has that extremely stiff, dry delivery, except it's in every single role where he just delivers every single line like this. And like that's Wes's whole thing. So like I sort of get it, but he's supposed to be this like uber charismatic Lothario who we're supposed to look past his flaws because he's just we understand why all these other people want to do business with him. We understand like the humanity that maybe his daughter sees in him. And Del Toro just ensures that absolutely none of these character traits come through. So you're just kind of watching this extremely vacant father-daughter story, even though the actress who plays his daughter, whose name I'm blanking on right now, does a really terrific job. Maybe you could fill in that name.
I do. Mia Throplaton. I'm not going to try to pronounce the last name. Mia something.
Yes, she's Kate Winslet's daughter.
I had no
That
idea.
that's crazy. No, she's actually terrific. I really think that her and Michael Cera probably come the closest to playing real characters in this.
Yeah.
But then you get to the kind of ensemble supporting cast because the movie is structured around Zaza, Benicio del Toro's character, rebuilding his business relationships after the government uh, increases the prices of all the materials they're using. And it's just like one segment after another of these really famous actors coming in for 2 seconds, delivering nothing of substance, having like a slight beef with Del Toro's character, and then pretty much fucking off until towards the end. And it's just like baffling to me why these actors just continue to come back to Anderson over and over again. It's like a cult at this point. It's really
I
just
could see it being fun. If I was Tom Hanks, I'm sure this is probably one of the more fun shoots to be on, I
it
guess.
feels like it almost feels like Adam Sandler though. Like
Yeah,
how like
that's a
these
good
guys
shout.
just like want to go on this like if it's really just simply that it's fun, I don't give a shit. It's not fun for me. Yet like to watch these guys give these incredibly lazy performances. Oh, they had a bunch of laughs and slapped each other on the back at the craft services table. Like who cares? It's just really so vexing.
Yeah.
And it's just all these amazing actors. It's like Tom Hanks and Scarlett Johansson and Bryan Cranston and Benedict Cumberbatch, who, by the way, Benedict Cumberbatch, I think, would have been infinitely better as Zaza. It just
Well,
like
yeah. I mean, most people would be.
well, not even that most people would be. It's like I was thinking about like the main Wes Anderson project that I loved since Grand Budapest Hotel is Wonderful Life of Henry Sugar. I think just because he was working with previously established material, and also because I thought he and Benedict Cumberbatch like really, really gelled well, and I think the way he was trying to with Benicio del Toro, and the whole time I'm just like Benedict Cumberbatch could play this character brilliantly in his sleep. Like I really think if he had gone with Cumberbatch, it would have had a similar charm to Ray Fiennes in the Grand Budapest Hotel, and the movie could have worked. So to see Benedict Cumberbatch pop in for 2 seconds with that awful beard, just like really, really killed me. But it's all of them. It's just it's beyond aggravating to me.
Well, it's shocking because like none of them are good. Like you list a great ensemble, and you can think like, okay, well, at least maybe even if the writing is bad, maybe they will have some charm in their performance, and they just do not. I felt like such a miserable bastard sitting there and being like, clearly Wes Anderson's like they're gonna play basketball, and it's so fun, and I'm just sitting there like, this sucks, dude. This is so boring. There's just like, this is a movie that I would say is void of just any charm, and for a Wes Anderson film, that is shocking. It really is bad. I also will say this has a bit of a, you mentioned that you can't really root for the characters. It's not just because the performances. I think the writing there is like genuinely awful. This has a bit of like Star Wars Episode 1 fever almost, where they drop you into this middle of this political game and they're like, you will care, you will be invested. I am not invested, much less am I going to have a nuanced take on this to be like, yeah, you know what, this guy who uses slave labor, woo, love him, he actually heart of gold, dude. That's my boy. That's not going to come from this. It is shocking to see a filmmaker regress like Anderson has. I genuinely don't even know what it is, because like his screenplays used to be so good, and now they are just, I mean, it is awful. Did you know you could be listening to this episode of ClapperCast early? Well, if you go to our Patreon page, patreon.com/ClapperCast podcast, there are 3 different tiers that you can choose from, each with their own means of support and each with their own means of rewards. You can get access to early episodes, bonus monthly episodes, bonus reviews. You can see our schedule early. Of course, thank you everyone who's already joined us on Patreon, and we hope to see you over there soon. I literally can't even, just like, I need to be clear, the colors here are are terrible. It feels like he made Grand Budapest and he just still like had no leftover paint. He never wanted to buy paint again, so every project gets a little bit more watered down. I just wish he would go maybe to animation again. I think both of his animated films worked. I agree. I didn't love, especially some of the Netflix shorts, but I thought Henry Sugar was okay. Stay with pre-done material. Get out of the same aesthetics. I think at least with Asteroid City, and hopefully you'd agree with us, like visually, it is unique for a Wes Anderson film. Visually, there's something there. This European quirkiness, like it just does so nothing for me in a way that's like, I don't know. I just feel miserable. I feel so bored. At least before I could say Wes Anderson was a filmmaker, I'm always excited to see what he does next because I'm sure it's going to have something of identity, whether it's good or bad. This is the first one where it feels like Wes Anderson made for Netflix, where it just like has nothing. Super bummed, like genuinely quite depressed from this. And I think it was probably clear it was bad because no one at Cannes even was like, it's amazing. People were like, yeah, it's kind of okay. And that's always an over exaggeration. So we should have known it was going to be down there. Yeah, just like depressing, I find.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, on a note of what you just brought up, I do think this is sort of, in a weird way, his take on the kind of eat the rich subgenre that we've had with Succession and The White Lotus. And like, I think it's kind of trying to tap into that zeitgeist. But because he seemingly like is obsessed with writing every single character to where they talk like a monosyllabic 12-year-old, like it's just, it used to be really charming, but it's like, these characters who are supposed to be really like devious and backstabbing and have all these qualities that require characters to talk in an intelligent manner, and you'll have a scene and it's just like, behold my evil plan. It is this, and this. Or like he'll spend 30 seconds on Jeffrey Wright, also wasted by the way, going like, you sit here, 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 you sit here. It's just like it literally feels like I'm watching like a school play. And it's just like so, I literally don't. And when I was saying like I don't understand like what's in it for the actors, it's not just that like it's thankless roles, it's bad material that doesn't really allow them to like really build a character beyond these extremely sparse one note descriptions. Like you have like Scarlett Johansson, and there's kind of this fraught backstory about how her and Benicio del Toro's characters were cousins, but now he wants to marry her for different power dynamic reasons. And like that could be a really kind of juicy, fucked up dynamic under a director who's actually willing to like go there. But she's just like, we were cousins and now you want to marry me. Do you understand why that's weird? Yes, I understand why that's weird, but we need to do it anyway because I need to get the project back on board. Yes, I understand that you need to get the project back on board, so I will go along with you in this union. Like it's just like it's awful. What I want Wes Anderson to do is go back to make something like Bottle Rocket, which is like a really stripped down like crime movie that takes place in the real world and is just about the kind of dynamic between three, I think. It's been a while since I've seen it. Three like major characters. And it's just a small character, intimate character piece. I would love to see him go back and do something like that. Like strip away all of the Andersonisms and just try and get back to telling a story again. Like even something like Royal Tenenbaums has like some of those flourishes, but it's definitely more grounded.
Yeah.
He needs to do something like that. That's really the only way that I think he can win me back, because that's my favorite stuff by him.
Yeah.
I actually think when he tries to inject humanity into these characters, he's actually great at it. I just, for some reason, he's just, I think it's honestly because for Grand Budapest Hotel was such an
Yeah.
awards contender. I think he just thinks he has to do this every single time, and I just like I don't get it. I really, and the problem is that people just praise him for it
Yeah.
regardless. And like I don't want to accuse people being disingenuous. Like, more power to you if you like it. It's just like he it really bothers me when people have absolutely no desire to grow and change.
Yeah.
And I think that he's just so stuck. And this is maybe the most stuck I've ever seen him, to where even like French Dispatch, I'm like, you're experimenting with structure a little bit, you're experimenting with characterization a little bit, and then Asteroid City, we kind of got into what the experimental aspect was here. This was just like, all right, I'm going to give them something like Grand Budapest again. And it's not it.
And this is even after
Anyway,
post Oscar win. Like he has an Oscar now. You can't even claim like, oh, he's innocently just trying to go for it. Like it's so sad. I think there's a clear distinction in his filmography where you had those beginning films that all took place in a reality, and then great, as you mentioned, Grand Budapest really challenged that, and then he starts going deeper and deeper. I'd argue actually Moonrise Kingdom kind of starts that, but he used to put so much energy into bringing his quirkiness not to creating a world, but creating little slices of the world. I think about the Royal Tenenbaums and thinking about their house, their living situation, the relationship between these characters. And they all have these little quirks, but that's really fun because you're playing them against reality. There's comedy there. When the entire world is this fantastical, you have no understanding how it works, there's nothing grounded, it's all the zaniness. The actual zaniness of the characters or the actual zaniness of the writing, it doesn't feel funny. It has nothing to it that actually draws a special feeling out of it. Um, yeah, I just think it's rough. I mean, do you have anything left about the Phoenician scheme? I think I'm about ready to move on, to be honest. Just sick.
yeah, I mean, I think, to be honest, I I really, really hate that we're in this age where people with AI think that they can just mimic the style of a filmmaker.
Yeah,
But if there's any filmmaker, and we've seen it,
look,
that I kind of understand why people think that, it's Wes Anderson, because he is a derivative of a derivative of himself. He is a self parody at this point. And there's a reason that a computer can regurgitate what he does. Maybe with not the same depth of character, of course, and not the same like
he's challenging
level
that, but
of
yeah.
authorship, not the same level of authorship, but the general aesthetic and like the reason people think why it's so repeatable
Yeah.
is because he repeats himself. And it's just, I'm not like again, I'm as anti AI as it gets. But I think that like in order to challenge the notion that art does need to come from people, or to convey that notion rather, the filmmakers who are at the top of the food chain need to evolve and work to prove that. And movies like The Phoenician Scheme make me think that people are going to lose hope and faith in the medium, because it's just such a poor experience for anybody watching. And I mean, if you like Wes Anderson, God bless you. But he's so over the hill for me. For me, he's one of the worst working directors right now.
Look, I'm anti AI. I watched all the Studio Ghibli films and felt sick. We've talked about it on this podcast. If you had to put the Phoenician scheme in comparison to like the very early days of AI video, where they'd be like Star Wars with the Wes Anderson theming, and I watched both pieces of content and just judge like which one do I feel more whimsy from, am I more engaged by, do I think is more exciting? I'd pick the AI. Fuck AI. But Anderson's definitely challenging that notion. I will say, like, one thing is like he is definitely like, yes, I think film Twitter and critics are applauding this film as they have applauded every single one of its features. The general audiences are not turning out how they used to. Like the social level of a new Wes Anderson release between 2019 and now drastically has dropped. So I will say, like, not to celebrate art, people not going to the cinema. Obviously wish people went to the cinema, but like at least there are some consequences here. I think Wes Anderson is really like at this point damaging his brand and just kind of digging that grave deeper and deeper. We'll be on the podcast, of course, for the next one, so stay tuned for that. But I definitely am not gonna look forward to it. This one, I was like, maybe, but I'm pretty much done at this point, unless
That
it's
is
something
kind of the
wonderful.
masochistic aspect of it, is like, I will see his next one. I kind of love to hate him. Like I'm almost so impressed by how little he's improved, and how like actively he refuses to just like make anything I like, that I will always watch it just out of like a morbid fascination with how much he doesn't appeal to me. So
It's him and Neil Blomkamp both are the directors that like I will always show up and I will always now be like it's gonna be a 1 star, but boy am I gonna be there opening night. I have to.
I love
So
District 9.
great district. Very similar answer. Great start. Then we go into Elysium.
What I always say about Neil Blomkamp is that he had the career that people think M. Night Shyamalan had. Like, he
Yes,
actually has that, which is like, he had one amazing movie and then, like, he just, like, cannot do another good one.
he just kept making the
Like,
worst movie ever made multiple times over,
yeah.
and then did Gran Turismo, and then drove off to the sunset, never to be seen again.
I kind of liked Gran Turismo.
It was
I
fine.
had fun with it. Yeah.
It was fine. With that, let's go to our other new release this week. Bring Her Back from the same directing team that made Talk to Me back a couple years ago. Michael, I believe you're not a huge fan of Talk to Me, so I'm excited to hear what did you think of Bring Her Back?
So, yes, I thought that Talk to Me was really an utterly derivative and just plain take on this whole like trauma horror subgenre that's become such a prevalent thing since Hereditary. I thought it was very in your face with kind of the gimmicky camera work and kind of vacant of character, but insisting upon its own style without really anything to say. And I genuinely don't like in my life, I have very rarely changed my view on directors so radically in a single film as I did with Bring Her Back. I absolutely love this movie, and I think that it is in the same way that I said that Talk to Me is a derivative of Hereditary. I think that this is a true successor to Hereditary in the aspect that I think that it is deeply tragic. It's not just that it's scary. I think that um, a lot of these like movies will sort of reach for, oh, this is my trauma about XYZ, but it's just sort of said. This movie really makes you feel the sadness of its two main characters after their father dies and the kind of complicated sadness because as you learn their father was a deeply flawed individual to say the least. And then when they go to Sally Hawkins, who fosters them, you're treated to one of the best performances I've seen in the genre in a very long time, to where like I would parallel her to Toni Collette in Hereditary. This is someone who takes her screen presence, that very affable, friendly, kind of warm persona that we've known her for all these years, and weaponizes it in so many subtle and not subtle ways to just like make your skin crawl really anytime she opens her mouth, but you still kind of understand like why these kids get drawn into like maybe this woman is going to take care of us and maybe she will be accepting of us and nurture us, even though there is kind of this elephant in the room of this other foster child who's constantly exhibiting to say the least alarming and weird behavior. There's still kind of this thread of hope. Maybe it's not what it seems. And then, boy, is it what it seems. And when this thing gets creepy, it is really creepy and it is violent in a way that isn't just for shock value. It like hurt. It like physically hurt in the way that some of the like French extremity movies hurt, like Martyrs and Inside. I can't remember the last time I felt as much kind of secondhand pain as, as I have during this movie. And I watch a lot of fucked up stuff. I know you and Paul, when you were talking about Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, brought up how much I love Terrifier 2 about the 87 different times. And it is true. Like I watch a lot of kind of gory slasher stuff, but this is a whole other beast. I really, really love this movie. I think it's my second favorite of the year so far, behind Sinners. And I'm actually very excited to see what these guys do next.
I'm definitely going to be a foil to you here. So I found Talk to Me to be fun. I didn't think it was like revolutionary how a lot of people did, but I saw it at Sundance. So it was like very refreshing not knowing anything about it. I thought it was energetic and I enjoyed it for what it was, especially the first act, let's say. Once you get to the third act, you get some interesting points. I was really curious to see how they were going to do on a different story. I know they're really like going deep in the Talk to Me universe. They're doing a sequel, they're doing a prequel, they're going deep there, but still I was excited to see something new and original. And I definitely felt mixed about this. I'm definitely not a hater of this, but I definitely did not love it like you did. I will agree that Sally Hawkins is phenomenal here. That was my biggest note of the entire project. The performance she's giving is so strong as far as playing with expectations, the emotional weight she has. There are some scenes where you can just tell she is so defeated and she's just sitting there like, just in pain, and it works so well. I thought both the kid performances here were quite strong, especially the boy. The biggest issue for me here is I just found this film to be quite boring. The gore here is spectacular. It is one of the grossest films I've ever seen. To the point where I think this is the only time, or at least one of the few times I've gone to the theater and actually got nauseous to the point where I was like, am I going to throw up right now? Please don't throw up at the press screening for Bring Her Back. That'd be really embarrassing. I didn't throw up, luckily. Immediately texted Paul, do not see this movie. You're not going to be able to handle it. So all that as far as like makeup, and that worked beautifully. I am so over films that set up something to where it's pretty simple. You know what's happening here, right? At least I did. I assume you did too. It's not like it necessarily transcends expectations once it kind of reveals its cards. And it just gets into this cycle of Sally Hawkins does something kind of weird and devilish. And then the boy doesn't know, oh my God, why I peed myself. That's crazy. And then you just kind of keep going with that and the gaslighting. And it just gets into a cycle that I found to be so boring. But I was like, okay, at least we're going to get to the end and we're going to have this big explosion. It's all going to be worth it. It's going to be so fun. It's going to really go there. And it just didn't for me. I felt really quite disappointed by the third act here. I will say, I think there's very obviously quite a few rewrites to the ending here. There's a few things they set up that like they very clearly set up, they just do not pay off. It does feel to me like they changed some of the conclusion here, probably make it less sad and less fucked up. But I was just really like, I don't know, it was boring. I wish there was more here. I felt like it started to take a nice swing and then it just didn't go big enough. I wish I could be as big on this as you are.
I definitely get that. I think it just really appeals to my personal sensibilities of what I love in horror, which is that I love horror movies that are not about some big reveal or some like, and I'm not necessarily saying you wanted this, but like some big like monster or some big like horrible trippy sequence at the end or some like major revelation like that. I love horror movies that are just about human evil and like what people are willing to do when they're put into a desperate position. So I definitely understand why you would feel that it was repetitive, and I can't definitely can't argue with that. But to me, it was less repetitive, and it was more about building this constant sense of dread and knowing that like she is leading to kind of a big final transgressive act. And I can definitely see being underwhelmed by where it ends up going. But I think because the movie is so small scale in general, I didn't mind having a small scale ending. I think, if anything, I would have maybe been aggravated if there was suddenly some like huge tonal shift in the third act. Um, I can also kind of see what you mean about it being retooled, but I think when you're going to put people through such a bleak experience, especially when there's kids involved, I think there is kind of a need to not necessarily pump the gas all the way. You know what I mean? Like,
Says the Terrifier fan. I'm kidding.
right. No, no, but like what I always say about Terrifier is that it's a carnival ride. It's like it's a haunted house. You're not like, I understand why people are like appalled by Terrifier. But you're not going to sit here and tell me it's like pretending to be a serious film. And like there's kids die in Terrifier, but at 3, which is not my favorite in the series by far. That could be a whole other conversation. But it's like it's a quick like one and done almost gag. This is like an actual story about kids being victimized and traumatized. And I think there's a certain point where something's got to give if you're going to deliver a movie that audiences are going to talk favorably about. And like
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are just always like, fuck the audience, and like it should just be
No.
about what the director personally feels like it should be, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, no, like I think if you can make something fucked up and also make it like a communal experience that everyone, or not everyone, but at least a lot of people can come away enjoying, and like it's reflected in the fact that like this movie is pretty good audience scores and
Yeah.
cinema score. Not that that really matters, but like just for the point that I'm making, it has like an 80% audience score and like a B plus cinema score, which really goes to show you the change in sensibility towards this kind of horror since Hereditary, which had an awful
Oh
audience
yeah.
reception when it came out. Um, but I think that like as this is the next evolution of that in terms of not just um, the themes, but also kind of the taste level,
Right.
which is something that I have struggled with Ari Aster with in every project he's done since Hereditary, and which does not seem like it's going to be improved upon in Eddington. But I'm kind of excited to see that.
I literally just got triggered you saying, "Don't talk about that man." As I work outside of Hereditary, please.
We're going to have
I,
to do an Eddington episode.
I've it's on the schedule, and every single day I'm like, I just need to delete it. I don't want to see that movie. I don't want to. I'm so sorry, but maybe we'll see. A lot is coming out in July already, so we'll see. I agree. I guess for me, I think the biggest issue I had with the film is that in backhanded, I guess, like it is so good at crafting that dread. It is so good at crafting that tension. I mean, it's like a miserable experience in the best of ways. I mean, like it's very, very skilled. And the ending is sad. Like it's not like I think if audiences at home listen to this and hadn't seen the film, it's not that it holds back certain punches. Like it goes places, and I appreciate that. It is a tremendously sad conclusion. Um, it just feels like, especially with Sally Hawkins, it feels like she's done, I guess, minor implied spoilers, but she's done so much by that point. It doesn't feel like a big enough moment when she finally um, gets what's coming for her, I guess, right? Like for her conclusion for her character, I felt for how much this film builds, it didn't have the release that I wanted emotionally or sensationally from this ending. I also didn't need like a giant demon to come down or come out of the pool and like drag her to hell, obviously. But I felt like it could have done more.
The way I'd respond to that is I think that a lot of the time we cathartically want characters who are abusers to meet this like really violent crazy end that like is going to give us that big like yeah like release, but a lot of the time they just come to small sad ends. And I think that this the way her character ultimately ends up and the final image of her very much was that for me. And I think it ties her entire motivation behind her actions together so concisely, but also you just you see this person for just the sad individual that they are. And for me that was enough.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're kind of maybe wrapping up on it. Like, I just, I appreciate, I guess, I appreciate a lot about this film. It's hard for me on the podcast. There's nothing worse than when you're just right in the middle because you tend to like be pulling back, especially when other people are positive. This is what happened to Lamb. If anyone listened to this podcast for a long time, I also just have the worst opinions. I guarantee you, if you go see the film, you're going to love it. Everyone else is loving it. So go have that experience. Me and Paul would be the only two in the audience booing it at the end. But I don't think this is terrible. I don't think it's like the worst thing in the world. I'm curious where the directors go from here. Are you excited? You obviously like these filmmakers now. You didn't like Talk to Me. Are you excited about them making like a sequel to Talk to Me, going back into that world or at all? Or what do you feel?
No. I don't want them to do a sequel to Talk to Me. I want them to just keep doing what they're doing. I think not everything needs a sequel. And Talk to Me is a great example of a movie that barely needed a first movie. Um, I'm honestly kind of bummed because they got their start making YouTube videos reenacting Street Fighter, and they were supposed to direct the Street Fighter movie, but they dropped out, and now another guy who directed Bad Trip, the Eric Andre movie, is doing it, which I think is also a good choice. But I would have liked to see them do that, like not to be like want directors to get sucked into the whole like IP machine, but like how cool would that have been to like see guys who came up as fans of a certain property like literally get to essentially make the ultimate fan film. I was bummed at that development. I really, really don't want them to go back to Talk to Me. I would definitely watch Talk to Me again and see if maybe I got into it a little bit more, and I would probably go see the second one. But I really hope they just. This kind of seems like they wrote it at the same time as Talk to Me, is what they said, and there were certain characters that slipped in and out of both projects. And I'm just really hoping that maybe they have another script like this kind of in the percolation stage that can maybe be their next thing, because they turn this around really quickly. They can always
Oh
go back
yeah.
to Talk to Me later. But I think that this is just such a stronger film, and I think that they could grow so much more as directors by continuing to hit these original ideas.
And I think it says something that they went to an original film. They didn't just jump right back to Talk to Me. I mean, I appreciate that. I guess it just gives me kind of Ty West vibes, and that's more cruel than I mean it sound. If you know my opinions on Ty West, but like X was cool. Then we don't need Pearl. We definitely don't need Maxine. We're just going further and further away from the plot. Let's not do that with Talk to Me. I do appreciate the Talk to Me with the two being the number two. I appreciate that, but overall not overly excited. But we'll see. I mean, we will see.
Well, I think the difference there is that X and Pearl were made as counterparts to one another. They were intended that way. Like, did like Pearl organically came out of the process of making X. I mean, I've loved those movies, not Maxine, but that's kind of my point. Is like Maxine was an add-on later on that just in no way felt like it was made with the same juice as X and Pearl. But like that's what I mean. Is like I just think that they could just do so much better.
For sure, for sure. I think that's probably if you mean. It sounds like we're torn. I guess actually we'd both recommend if you're okay with body horror and body gore that you go see this film. There's not a ton of horror movies out there right now outside of Final Destination. So like, I would recommend you go see Final Destination and then go see this. Michael, it sounds like you'd prefer people see this and then Final Destination. Um, Definitely, good stuff out there.
I mean, Final Destination is barely behind us on my favorite movies of the year. I mean, it's kind of whatever floats your boat. I absolutely loved Final Destination Bloodlines. And I wasn't even a big franchise fan. It was pretty much my first time seeing one of those movies and like really paying attention to it. But I dug it. So it's really just kind of depends on what your kind of style of horror is. If you're into something fun and blockbustery, go see Final Destination. But if you want something more grounded and I'd say genuinely disturbing, this is the one.
So with that, I think let's go to our rapid reviews. Anything we've seen recently that we haven't discussed on the podcast. I have a weird list, to be honest. I started with watching Tomorrowland, the 2015 film. Never saw it, but I'm quite a big Disneyland stan, so I was hopeful for this. Super boring, super weird, as being like following in the waves of Pirates of the Caribbean and eventually what's going to come with Jungle Cruise. Bizarre to make a film titled Tomorrowland that's only appeal is going to be the Disneyland or the theme parks, and then not really have any like references and like not please the crowd who are going for that. I just found it to be really boring. It felt almost like Cloverfield Paradox, where they just kind of shoehorned it into an IP afterwards. Did not do a lot for me. For the first time I watched Babe, the pig film from like 1995, everyone loved it. It got best picture, best director noms. I don't see it. Not to be heartless. I thought it was like cute. This was definitely like a cute film. I can't say I cried. I can't say I was particularly moved or impressed. The pig and the visual effects look good. It doesn't like look like I want to say it was 1999's Animal Farm where it just looks horrifying. But it was kind of there. And then in preparation for his new film coming out on streaming soon, I'm gonna watch, what is it called? Hurry Up Tomorrow. I decided to jump back into Trey Edward Schultz's filmography and finally watch Krisha, his first film. Really, really dug this one. I'm not sure if you saw this, but especially the sound design here, it is just like the most, in the best of ways, the most miserable Thanksgiving you will ever have. Just seeing all this, it's a script that is so smart also because it really unwinds super naturally as you go along with this experience. But what starts is just like, oh, it's a family get together. Oh no, there's a lot of judgment and evil here. Oh god, it's just getting worse and worse. Oh god, why are you doing this? Okay, at least it's over. Oh no, you're still doing terrible stuff. Very, very worthwhile. I'm so interested. I don't know if you saw it, but everyone hated his newest film. I've heard it's terrible and The Weeknd is just a vanity project, but I like every single one of his films outside of that. So I'm so like, is it really that terrible? Is it misunderstood? I don't know. Fascinated to see, but I will definitely get to that soon. Michael, what have you seen recently?
As someone who loves Krisha and It Comes at Night, Hurry Up Tomorrow, worst movie of the year. It is abysmal, and you're not ready. Like you think you're ready, and like it's just Trey Edward Schultz climbing all the way up his own ass. It's more similar to Waves, in style, but like I mean, I liked Waves, but this is like if Waves
Mm.
didn't have like any coherent plot. So I've been really over these last couple months like hitting my nose to the grindstone in terms of like watching so many classic movies that I have never seen. Like the other day I finally watched Breakfast at Tiffany's, which I really enjoyed, but structurally, it's just such a wild movie because they literally, for the entire runtime, don't decide what the central plot thread is going to be. It changes like five different times, and it's ultimately just about this like friendship that sort of ebbs and flows into love through these like several minor inconveniences. I watched I've watched two movies by the director Kim Ji Woon, the Korean director, The Good, the Bad, and the Weird, which is one of the most insane action-packed movies I've ever seen, and I say that as someone who's watched like a ton of violent, like especially recently, like Hong Kong movies. It's kind of a take on The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, like Western, but just blown up to 1,000. And then I watched A Bittersweet Life, which is a Korean gangster movie with a somewhat more kind of sensitive side than you'd expect to some of his other movies or that genre, which I really liked. In terms of things I hated, I watched Robert Altman's Nashville, which I thought was insufferable and one of the hardest to finish movies I think I've ever sat through in my life. Like, I really don't understand what the appeal is there at all. I loved Akira Kurosawa's Ran, the adaptation of King Lear that he did. Incredible film. Honestly, like every other historical blockbuster now just looks like kind of weak sauce in my mind. And then the last one I'll shout out is John Frankenheimer's Seconds, which is about a banker who decides to essentially undergo a body transplant to be younger, and he becomes Rock Hudson. But the whole film is done in this really kind of disorienting style where you can tell that the second he transfers bodies, everything is just still not quite right, and it gets really weird and dark and just incredibly sad. It's like a long Twilight Zone episode basically, but it really rocks. And then I think it's really funny that you and I are kind of both on a Gregoraki tear right now. We watched Nowhere within 24 hours of one another and both hated it. I just watched Doom Generation last night, which I absolutely loved, and I feel like it's such a like radically improved version of so many movies that I've like not liked from that era, like Natural Born Killers. Um, that movie was just such an adrenaline shot, and I'm excited to hear what you think of his other movies. I know you're going to review. I forget the name of it. The one of his earlier ones that I
The
haven't
Living
watched yet.
End.
The
Yeah, I'm
Living
excited
End,
to watch
yeah.
Living End. But no, it's funny. We didn't talk about that. We both watched Nowhere. I'm watching the Doom Generation tonight. So like for some reason we both came to this director at the same time, but I'm happy we did because so far most of it's of quality. I didn't love Nowhere either, but like, most of it's good, it seems.
Nowhere is kind of awful. Like I don't understand
I
what the
feel like
appeal of Nowhere is.
if I saw it at a film festival, I would have walked out, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah.
Very gave me a headache. Not good. But with that, I think that's gonna do it. Shout out Greg Araki. We'll have again on our Patreon this month, our full episode on The Living End. So we're excited to share that, I believe, next week. But with that, I think that's gonna do it for today's episode. Michael, where can we find you on social media?
TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd, at the King of Burbank.
And you can find me on Letterboxd and Blue Sky just at Carson Tamar. I cannot believe I made it through this entire episode and didn't bring up my Bring Her Back dental floss they gave me.
Oh
Shout
man,
out A24.
that is diabolical.
Awful.
That's one of their best merch tie-ins I've ever seen.
No, it's very good. So with that, thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Thank you, Michael, for joining as always. And we will see you next time right here on ClapperCast. Goodbye.